Okay, well, we'll continue to bring you more views on that. But right now, we also have our next guest joining us, Mr. Bothra, the ED and Group CFO at Minda Industries. Mr. Bothra, thanks so much for joining us, and good morning. Let's talk about, the demand and supply side scenario. Just talk us through the latest, especially post the easing of the lockdown. Are you seeing signs of a recovery? Have all your suppliers, trade partners resumed production?
No, definitely. Thank you very much. As we all know that post the lockdown, April was a period which was almost completely closed. We have started gradually resuming our production both locally and internationally in the month of May. May obviously was a period where it was a slow ramp up in terms of not even us, even our customers, our suppliers, everybody was sort of trying to get things in place, because it is very easy to stop the button or stop the gear, but when you have to start, you start always in a gradual manner. So that way I think May was a little better, and I think June was even better. As we see today, most of our capacities are actually running at around maybe roughly 50% of the pre-COVID levels. And as we enter into June, the things are looking a little better. So if I see month on month, May, June, July, things are actually improving, and we are seeing that signs of demand coming in. We all know that whatever happened in China this time, or even the pre-SARS time, the demand for personal mobility actually has increased, because people wanted to own their own mobility instead of going into a shared mobility or a public transport. So we do expect that signs sort of setting in into India as well, I would say even globally, and that we are actually seeing China, where things today are almost close to pre-COVID levels. So in India, auto industry also is, I think, gradually increasing productions. We know that the demand is going up. Maybe more so initially, it may be at the lower end of the models, maybe be it two-wheelers or four-wheelers. But at the end of the day, I think demand is growing, and we are gradually catching up to, I'm not sure when we reach the pre-COVID levels, but at least now we are 50%, and maybe in July we should be around 60-70% of the pre-COVID levels.
All right. Fair enough. Also, in terms of, the weak operating performance in Q4, let's talk about your own operating structure right now, plans to protect margins from henceforth, any cost restructuring that you're looking at as well in light of the current environment, current capacity utilization. Talk us through some of those parameters.
No, absolutely. So if I talk about the previous quarter and previous year first, if you see our quarterly numbers, the revenue drop has been around 7% quarter on quarter. If I see Q4 of last year versus Q4 of this year, it's around 7.2%, versus the industry drop of almost 15%. And even if I see full year number, our drop is roughly around 5% versus industry drop in volumes of around 10%. So clearly, I think we have been on a trajectory of outperformance relative to the industry, and which we have been on track. And this has been visible even in our last quarter and the full year numbers. If you see last quarter, definitely margins were not in line in terms of the previous preceding quarters, primarily because we all know that last 10-11 days there was no production, and obviously you continue to incur all your fixed costs. And also we had some sort of one-times like the merger of 4 subsidiaries, so there has been some cost because of that. Otherwise, if you exclude some sort of those one-time expenses, then I think our margins for Q4 actually were broadly in line with what it was prior to that. Now, coming back to what we are doing now, definitely I'm sure it's everybody what is doing in terms of cost optimization, cost rationalization, maybe if I may call variabilization of costs. So we have been looking into various aspects of costs, be it the kind of rents you pay, the kind of fixed overheads you incur, or maybe the procurement cost. We are trying to see what we can benefit out of, maybe some improvement or softening of the commodity prices. We know that in terms of the new developments, fortunately good thing is the customers have been continuing in terms of new developments. So the work has been going on, which gives confidence that future the things should improve further. In terms of further cost rationalization initiatives, we have been looking to in terms of maybe moving some of the low capacity plants to other plant temporary basis, so that we benefit on economies of scale. So there have been various flurry of actions which the management has been taking in terms of one, cost realization, A, and B, our overall objective has been how do we sort of bring down our break-even point from previous levels of around 70-75% to maybe around 60-65% of our total pre-COVID levels, I would say so. Because even pre-COVID levels, we all know that volumes actually last year has been significantly down. So if I am able to, or if we are able to sort of bring our break-even down to maybe around 60-65 of pre-COVID level, which broadly means at around 50-55% of our capacity. So I think that is the target the management is working on, and we are pretty confident that we should be able to reach those targets.
Sure. Sunil also wanted to understand, that when one talks about the auto sector, perhaps this is the best example of self-reliance and global competitiveness as well. Now with the government also pushing Atmanirbhar Bharat, how geared up do you think the industry is in terms of both technology as well as capacities?
It's a difficult question, but if I have to answer in terms of opportunities, it definitely brings up huge opportunities for the industry, for the economy as a whole in India, because today we all know that everybody is trying to have some alternate supply chain in place. We are currently in process of putting two large businesses, I'm sure you know about it, is two-wheel alloy wheel, which is currently as a country, we import almost close to 2/3 of our total requirements. And there we are investing close to 325 crore in putting up a plant which will manufacture roughly 4 million wheels a year, which is nothing but an import substitution. Another business we are setting up is sensors business, where we are investing close to 175 crores. And over next 3 to 4 years, it will give a revenue of roughly, in addition to existing business, total of around 600 crores. So this is again an import substitution. So the point I'm trying to drive home is that we have actually been working on in terms of localization with all the OEMs, whatever we can, and create a win-win for both of us. We de-risk the supply chain and also bring those industry or the products into India. So we are currently in discussion with our customers also for newer opportunities, and let's see how things pan out. But we are pretty confident that with whatever roadmap we have laid out for ourselves, we should be able to outperform in medium to long term.
Sure. Sunil, we were just chatting with Mr. R.C. Bhargav from Maruti, and we just played out a soundbite of his as well. He says that electronic parts is indeed the biggest handicap for the auto industry in India, and that component makers also prefer importing these parts instead of manufacturing them themselves. What do you think is the reason for that? And can the government step in here, perhaps give the industry an aid, incentivize them perhaps to try and build electronic parts in India?
I think the biggest reason why as a country we continue to import electronic parts, as Mr. Bhargav also said rightly, then depending on import, because the biggest reason is the kind of investment it needs. It needs billions of dollars of investment to set up that kind of infrastructure and scale to compete with the global supply chain, which as of now in India, I don't think we have that wherewithal to spend that kind of capex, have a long sort of lag period in terms of getting your returns, and also compete with the global supply chain. It's not only about one country. If you go to any other country, the kind of scale or the capacity which people put up in terms of electronic part, be it resistors, capacitors, whatever you talk about, small parts, right? The kind of scale we have, to reach that scale, you need to invest a lot of capacity, a lot of money you need to pump in to make sure that it can be produced locally. Now, can it be? Yes, definitely, why not? But again, it boils down to the scale and the funding or the investment it needs to generate those kind of competitive pricing.
Great. Thanks so much for joining us this morning, Mr. Bohra, and talking us through the current environment as well as your outlook on things.